one of the sort of elements of this course is students creating their own DIY corpora. But all the rest, what I'm going to talk today, is not using DIY corpora. It is using available materials and corpora sort of generically, because I teach mixed groups of students, and that is why you know, sometimes I will be looking at sort of subject-specific uses, but sometimes I will try to glean the general things that can be useful for all the students. So I would be sort of using today 3 Corpus tools: Corpus Lex Tutor, Corpus Concordanza, created by Tom Cobb of University of Montreal, and then British National Corpus, which resides now on the platform of Mark Davis, and MyCasp, Michigan Corpus of upper level student papers. So could I, all these tools, first to say they are free, open, easily accessible. I consider them user-friendly. Students, after a bit of sort of convincing, also consider them user-friendly. But could you help me at this point to see whether you've got experience of using these, so that I wouldn't start talking to you about things that you already know? Could you go to menti.com and use this code and just say which ones you are using or you are aware of? That would help me sort of not to bore you with the details that you already know. Thank you. Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Right. Yeah.
I don't seem to have access to the chat, but LexiTutor I've used.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay. Thank you for saying that. And so I won't spend a lot of time on to sort of nuts and bolts of these if a lot of you have used it. Okay, so I'm going to look today at how I use corpus materials for teaching argumentation, and at every point, or particularly at starting points of argumentation, when students start developing their arguments and presenting their arguments. And then if we have time, I will talk a little bit about evaluative language and that, but I really don't know how long it will all take, so I planned quite a lot for today. Maybe we won't be able to look at everything. So in talking to students about sort of developing an argument, I sort of take as a point of departure the rhetorical moves by Swales and Feek, and I will show how we can help students to sort of understand these moves and see examples by using corpora. So starting with establishing research territory, which is usually sort of based on stating the importance of the area and the previous research, and using Lex Tutor Concordanza for that. So if you haven't used it, please follow the link if you want to replicate everything that I'm saying. Well, if not, then you're just welcome to see what is there, maybe to use it at a later date. But Lex Tutor I quite like, and my students appear to like Lex Tutor. But I've heard, not so much from students, but from colleagues, that the interface is a bit sort of busy. There are a lot of things going on. What I want to highlight is that to start using Lex Tutor, students don't need to know a lot about what's there. They need to know sort of 4 basic things. They need to put a word in. If we're talking about the first element of argumentation, so defining the importance of the field, let's look at the word important. Then we look at the word form. equals will search for the form exactly like we put it in the search window. Then we're, depending on what we want to see, we're looking on the right and on the left of the keyword, and we choose a corpus. People who haven't used LexTutor before, that's why I particularly like it, because it's got a choice of academic corpora. And in my situation, it's not always sort of possible for students to create their own DIY corpora. So we've got here academic abstracts and academic general of 6 million. There is Bohr, and there are subcorpora of British National Corpus, which gives some kind of discipline-specific corpora, humanities and law and medical. There are also law reports, and there is a small corpus of articles in education. So, and after that, you have concordance. All the rest students can sort of learn later, but from the first sort of go, they can already get some results. And in talking about the importance of the area, I usually highlight two things to students, and you will agree with me that there's a lot of sort of fuzzy and overgeneralized statements about importance at the beginning when students talk about the area of research in general terms. So supporting claims is very important. And I ask sometimes students to run this search, or I demonstrate this search to them to show how academics prefer, and proficient writers prefer, to support their claims of importance, for example. And this goes actually across different subject areas, and this helps students to understand that how the value that academics place on supporting their claims of importance. For example, another point that as I say, I'm making is avoiding overstatements, which also happen at this initial stage of talking about area of research. So to demonstrate how academics try to avoid overstatement, I run with them the search on the most, but this time looking on the left of the keyword. And there is in LexTutor Concordance a recent sort of addition, a yellow box where all the collocates are placed in the order of frequencies. So either here or looking through the concordance lines, you can see that there are words like perhaps, among, probable, probably, arguably, amongst, and so on. This tells students that the authors try to hedge these wide statements of the most, and they're all sort of clustered quite high in frequencies there. So apart from these, there are also some of the most, one of the most. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can see verbal hedges there, appears to be the most, is likely to be the most, seems to be the most. So there's a host of hedges with the most, and that actually brings it really, really clear to the students, rather than me banging on about it. They just see it for themselves. Also, there are very, very interesting strategies here, where the statements are attributed, statements of sort of generality of the most, attributed to other authors, like here, considered by many Afro-American literary scholars, or from Stevenson's point of view, where the authors sort of move the responsibility for saying the most to other authors. So this is another strategy to avoid overstatements. Very similar sort of searches, if you prefer BNC on English Corpora platform, then obviously, you can look at it in it. I will give you an example. If we look at collocates and we look at the most important, the phrase, and look on the left-hand side of it and find collocates, the results show that among 10 most frequent collocates, they are all hedges, perhaps, probably, amongst, arguably very similar to those that we find in LexTutor, and only far, which is part of by far, I suppose, and undoubtedly are the ones that the boosters. So this is again a very sort of valuable conclusion which students can draw themselves by looking at these at the concordances. Now, back to rhetorical moves. After establishing the research territory by sort of talking about the importance of the area, very often there is a couple of sort of sentences if we are talking about smaller piece of writing about previous research. And again, we can help students by looking at that. I think that the search on this argument can help. In what sense? In the sense that the students can see how authors engage with the previous argument, not just listing, because we all know that's what happens pretty often. So we can look at quick search, which is keyword in context. And if you are not familiar with British National Corpus, you will see that the results, the output is not very different from that of Lex Tutor Concordancer, only it's color coded, very, very usefully for students who can't tell nouns from verbs. So nouns are in this turquoisey color and verbs are in pinky magenta color. So why am I looking at this? Because this random selection of this argument, looking on the left, provides really the way how authors critically work with other people's arguments. So the dangerous and secularity about the argument, difficulty, not fully accepting, breaking, not impressed by the argument, counter the argument. So this is not just the students get here from studying it, not just the strategies of looking at other people's arguments, but also linguistic material, how to express it, how to verbalize it. So and also self positive was convinced to confirm we developed this argument and so on. It is quite sort of interesting. We can do the similar search in Lex Tutor. In Lex Tutor you can search apostrophe s plus argument and apostrophe s plus claim, and that again will give us quite a lot of material to look into. And if we want, we can click on the keyword and see the extended context and see several paragraphs surrounding particular word or particular line that we are interested in. So again, it can be used in many ways, in 3I ways, to demonstrate something or to ask students to look into it and find the particular examples of something. And now the from move 1 to move 2 transition from establishing the territory, its importance and previous research, to talking about the gap in the knowledge. And this again can be helped, exemplified, and also sort of made real for students. Very simple search, little research with associated word however. And I look at it within 10 words on either side of it. So it's quite a wide window. And that is in order to sort of capture all the instances. And you will see that there's not a lot of these instances there because it's very specific search. But I'm not after numbers in this case. I'm looking at the examples of however and little research and how the transition from one to the other one goes. By clicking on the keyword, we can see the extended context, and here it is. And here it is. We can ask again students to find the examples. We can ask students to interpret the examples, or I can sometimes use these examples to demonstrate what I'm saying. And this is from going from previous studies to however little research, and so on. Little research in a British National Corpus. Again, quick search shows that we can again see not just the strategies, because we can click on the keyword and see several paragraphs surrounding the line, but we can also see the sort of linguistic expression of it. We can draw students' attention to the preferences in tense, to the verbs that are used or preferred in this case. On the left-hand side, there are these hedging and boosting devices, which can also draw attention to, surprisingly, remarkably, relatively, and alongside with little research, we can look at little attention, similarly, and few studies, and students will get more sort of textual information about how to write about the gap in the knowledge. From the gap in the knowledge, we are going on to own research, students' own research. Again, looking at the research, looking at the little research plus, however, in a quite a long window of 9 words. And these are results from British National Corpus. Again, not too many results. And again, at this point, I'm interested in sort of looking inside what's going on there. So by pressing on, however, in British National Corpus, I get a line where it occurs. And if that's not enough, by pressing on the source, I get sort of examples, and examples again are very, very indicative of how authors write. I was actually myself surprised how many authors follow this really sort of rigidly, this scheme of going from one move to another. So here evidence suggests, talking about previous research, significant growth, indicating significance, then however the gap, and then this research aims. Also, again, from strategies, we can go into language and see how these moves are signaled, and also how these moves are gelled together, how they kept together. And this is quite interesting because, again, we can look at lexical and semantic repetition here, field of machine translation, MT techniques, or outside London, which is a provincial city, sort of some kind of connection, semantic connection there. And also here, we can look at to solve the problem, which is basically verbal lexical repetition and method of solving the problem. And at this particular example, it is indicative of how many authors sort of frame the idea of the claim and support of the gap. They frame it as a problem solution pattern, and this is also maybe worth looking into by using MyCasp. And again, if you would like to follow it, or if you like to use it later, I will just tell you a couple of words about it, because it seemed that not many people sort of used it. And it is about 2.6 million words of papers, the best papers of mainly postgraduate papers, but also higher undergraduate, senior undergraduate papers. And you can browse this corpus, you can search this corpus according to several criteria. And I think it is just an amazing resource, because you can look, even though it's 2.6 million words, it's like by modern standards, it's not huge, but it is so useful because we can browse by textual features, which I can't really go into it now, but it's just I want to draw your attention to that. We can choose the level of students. There's a lot of disciplinary sort of division here. By discipline, we can browse, and also we can search by type of the writing, argumentative essay. Also, on top of all this wealth of materials, we can look into the whole piece of writing, like the whole student's essay, and find how particular language forms appear in them. So going back to the problem, and what is interesting, if we search for the word problem in all of these subject areas, discipline areas, I only excluded creative writing, but I include argumentative writing and critiques and research papers and reports. Industrial engineering uses problem quite often, much more often than other areas. And if we look at argument, then argument is much more frequent in the papers on philosophy and politics. And also I decided to check claim. Claim also is more common in the papers on philosophy and politics. And that may help students basically to frame their analysis, to frame their arguments, because I know that I may be sort of educated as linguist. I sort of talk about argument too much. I probably have to really give students opportunity to choose what kind of argument it is. Maybe it is a problem solution argument, which is more of the case in sciences, and this is easily seen from this search. Another thing that is useful for students to have a look at is counter-argumentation. And I think that you would agree that a lot of students sort of don't quite like, particularly students who were educated and started writing in different academic cultures, they don't particularly be keen on counter-argumentation. They sometimes think that it undermines their argument. And from that point of view, it is really important to show them the value of counter-argumentation and the moves that are involved in it. So to do that, we can do a wildcard search, which is with asterisk, as you know, one asterisk argue, and that gives us a pretty good sort of pattern of one can argue, one could argue, and again, looking into these texts, we can find the examples of counter-argumentation, and then I look at them in a more sort of developed way. We look at the moves, we look at the signals. The signal one can argue argues the beginning of the counter argument, and then how author signals disagreement. And I can ask students to find the ways in which author maybe signals disagreement. One can argue is not the only sort of counter-argumentation strategy. Some critics claim there's another one of those. So, and this is an example, as you can recognize from British National Corpus, from Quick. And again, even though moves are sort of slightly different, then there are two basic parts to it: counter-argument and disagreement, and refuting of this counter argument. So yeah, clicking by and words, and of course my CASP also, you know, searching one can argue, we can find larger chunks of text in which can be sometimes useful to explore with students, to see the whole sort of counter argumentation path. Right. We've got maybe 5 minutes, haven't we, Julia?
Yeah, just about 4. Yeah, 4 minutes. Yeah, if there were any questions from the audience.
Maybe yes. Then I just stop here and leave these 4 minutes for questions from the audience. Really.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. That you've covered an awful lot there, and a really good sort of whistle-stop tour of the different corpora that are available. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If anyone has a question, would like to put it in the chat, please feel free to do so. Or if you would like to raise a hand or a virtual hand, then please do, or just